Britain's car handback boom is real, but it has nothing to do with your Toyota braking. There's a field behind a lot of British dealer groups that you're never meant to see. Rows of cars sat on gravel, plated, taxed, insured, nobody in them. Some of them have never had an owner at all. Some of them had one for 14 months and then came straight back. Now, you've probably seen a video telling you millions of people are handing back brand new cars because the engines are grenading. That's an American story. And most of the cars in it aren't even sold here. No Silverado, no Escalade, no Tundra, no F-150 at a British franchise. You can't buy them here, so they can't be coming back here. But cars are being handed back in this country. Thousands of them, every month, quietly, with a collection lorry and a condition report and nobody saying a word about it. It's just got almost nothing to do with what's under the bonnet. So hold on to this one line for the whole video, because it decides everything else. A price is honest. A payment is a costume a price wears. And Toyota's in the title on purpose. Toyota is the brand people buy specifically so they never have to think about any of this. Reliable, hybrid, sensible, boring in the good way. Here's the twist, and it's the reason to stay to the end. On a Toyota, the escape route I'm about to show you is usually the wrong move. Knowing why is worth more than everything else in this video put together. I'm Terry, and this is British Vehicles. No manufacturer pays us a penny. No press cars, and we don't sell cars. Everything here comes from published data, and we'll tell you which is which. Do me a favour before we start. Hit subscribe. It's free and it costs you nothing, and this is the sort of thing that stops a mate signing for something daft on a Saturday morning. Right. Where this comes from. The legal side is the Consumer Credit Act 1974, sections 99 and 100, which you can read yourself on the government's own website. The tax numbers are the current VED rates from Gov UK. The market numbers are the SMMT's registration data. Condition standards come from the BVRLA Fair Wear and Tear Guide, which is what most lenders actually measure your car against. And here's what nobody has. There is no published figure for how many British cars get handed back each year. The finance houses don't release it, the SMMT doesn't collect it, and anyone telling you 200,000 cars came back last year has made that up. So we're not going to give you a head count. We're going to give you the mechanism, and you can do your own sums on your own agreement, which is the only number that matters to you anyway. Now, the mechanism. Picture two lines on a graph. Line 1 is what the car is worth. It falls fast at first, then flattens out. Line 2 is what you owe. It falls slowly because early on most of your payment is interest, not car. For the first year or two of nearly every finance agreement in this country, line 2 sits above line 1. You owe more than the thing is worth. That gap is where every single handback in Britain lives. Not a timing chain, not a gearbox, a gap between two lines. And you never saw either line because nobody in that showroom was ever paid to show them to you. That's the rule first time. A price is honest. A payment is a costume a price wears. Link 1 is the price you never actually saw. You walked in, you looked at a car, and somebody asked you what you wanted to pay a month. From that second on, the price stopped being a number and started being an outcome. Change the term, change the deposit, change the balloon, and almost any car can be made to fit almost any monthly figure. The payment tells you nothing about the price. It tells you about the arithmetic somebody did to make you nod. And there's a proper sting in this one that catches people who did everything right. Vehicle excise duty. The standard rate this year is £200. Fine. But if the car's list price was over £40,000 when new, you pay the expensive car supplement on top. That's £440 a year from year 2 to year 6. £640 a year in total, and about £2,200 over the 5 years. Here's the bit that does people. It's based on the list price, including options, not what you paid. You can haggle £6,000 off a £42,000 car, drive it away for 36, and still pay the supplement for 5 years because the list price is what the DVLA looks at. Electric cars got a break in April. Their threshold went up to 50,000. Petrol, diesel and hybrid stayed at 40. Government's own figures show over 426,000 vehicles caught by that supplement in a single year, up more than 40% in 3 years. These aren't Bentleys, they're family SUVs with a couple of options ticked, so the price you never saw came with a tax bill you never saw either. That's the rule second time. Link 2 is the payment itself. The payment is a costume because it's designed to be. Nobody in that room is paid to ask whether you should be buying the car. They're paid on whether the monthly figure fits in the box on the form. Stretch it to 48 months, then 60. Drop the balloon in at the end, and suddenly a car you couldn't afford is affordable, right up until the month you have to decide what happens to that balloon. And the longer the term, the longer line 2 stays above line 1. A 4-year agreement on a car that loses half its value in 3 is a mathematical promise that you'll spend most of that agreement owing more than you've got. That isn't a scandal. It's just arithmetic that nobody read out loud. Quick favour before we get to the important half. If this is any use to you, give the like button a tap. Takes a second, costs you nothing, and it shoves this in front of somebody who's about to sign for the wrong motor this weekend. Cheers. Link 3 is the one bit of good news in the whole system, and hardly anybody knows it's there. If you're on PCP, that final balloon payment has a proper name. Guaranteed Minimum Future Value. Guaranteed. That word is doing an enormous amount of work. At the end of the agreement, the finance company has promised you the car is worth at least that much. If it isn't, if the market's collapsed, if the model's been discounted into the floor, if nobody wants that colour, that's their problem, not yours. You hand the keys over and walk away. You do not owe the difference. This is why the American version of this story doesn't translate. Over there, negative equity follows you into the next car like a bad smell. Here, on a PCP, the GMFV catches it. The people who genuinely get hurt in Britain are the ones who paid cash, or the ones who need to get out early, not the ones who ran the agreement to the end. So if you've been lying awake because your car's worth less than the balloon, stop. That's the lender's bet and they lost it. That's the rule again, and this time it's in your favour. Link 4 is the exit, and it's the reason we're making this video. Section 99 of the Consumer Credit Act 1974. It's called voluntary termination. Once you've paid 50% of the total amount payable, you can hand the car back and the agreement ends. No further monthly payments. No shortfall chasing you. It is a statutory right. That's the important word. Your lender can't refuse it. It doesn't matter what their terms and conditions say, because you can't contract out of an Act of Parliament. You don't need a reason. You don't need to have missed anything. You don't need permission. 4 things to get right, because this is where people trip. 1. 50% of the total amount payable, not 50% of your monthly payments. The total includes your deposit, every instalment, all the interest, the fees, and on a PCP, the balloon as well. That's a much bigger number than people expect, and it's why most agreements don't cross the line until well past halfway through. It'll be printed on your agreement. Go and find it. 2. If you haven't reached 50% yet, you can pay the difference and terminate anyway. That's allowed. Sometimes writing a check for £2,000 to walk away from an £18,000 liability is the cheapest thing you'll ever do. 3. Section 100 still lets them charge you for damage beyond fair wear and tear, and for excess mileage. Fair wear and tear isn't a mood, it's a published standard. The BVRLA guide. Stone chips and light scuffs, fine. Curbed alloys, torn seats and a missing service history, not fine. So photograph the car before it goes. Every panel, every wheel, the interior, the mileage, dated. Get a signed condition report at handover. Don't do any of it over the phone. 4. Your account has to be up to date. Any arrears get cleared first, even if that pushes you past the 50% mark, so this is not a rescue plan for somebody who's already 3 payments behind. It's a decision you make while you're still on top of it, which is exactly the sort of thing nobody tells you until you're not. That's the rule again, and it's the whole video in one sentence. The payment was the costume. Section 99 is where the costume comes off. Link 5 is the one that costs people thousands, and it's a single word. Voluntary termination is not the same as voluntary surrender. Termination is your legal right under Section 99. Your liability stops at that 50% line. You're done. Surrender is just an agreement. You give the car back, they auction it, and whatever the auction doesn't cover, you still owe. That shortfall can run into thousands, and it doesn't go away. They sound almost identical when somebody says them quickly down the phone. They are not the same thing at all. So do it in writing and use the exact words. I am exercising my right to voluntary termination under Section 99 of the Consumer Credit Act 1974. Name, address, agreement number, registration. Email is fine, but follow it with a recorded delivery letter. If somebody on a phone tries to steer you towards surrender instead, that's your cue to stop talking and start typing. Right? Let me hit the brakes, because a channel that only tells you the exciting half isn't worth your time. 3 honest caveats, and the third one might change your mind entirely. First, voluntary termination is not free money. You've paid half the total cost of the car, and you're handing it back with nothing to show for it. If you've got a decent chunk of equity in there, you've just given it away. It's a way out, not a win. Second, it goes on your credit file. It shouldn't be recorded as a default because it isn't one, and if it is, you can complain and escalate it to the financial ombudsman. But some lenders will look at it a bit sideways next time you apply. It's far better than missing payments. It's not invisible. Third, and this is the big one, it doesn't apply to everything. Voluntary termination covers regulated hire purchase and PCP. It does not cover a personal contract hire lease, it does not cover business contract hire, and it does not cover a personal loan you used to buy a car outright. If you're on a lease, this right isn't yours. Go and read the top of your agreement and find out which one you've actually got, because half the people who think they can do this can't. And there's a fourth thing really, which is that anyone waving a huge national handback number at you without explaining any of that is selling you a click. Nobody publishes that number. We checked. Right? Top of the second half. If you've stuck with me this far, do me a favour and subscribe before we get to the Toyota part, because the Toyota part is the one nobody sees coming. So, Toyota. Toyota finished the first half of this year 10th in the UK brand charts, in a market that grew over 9% to more than 1.1 million cars. That's not a brand people are running away from. And the Toyota recalls filling the internet this year are almost all American cars. Grand Highlander, Tundra, Tacoma, the US Camry, the American Corolla. You cannot buy any of them at a British Toyota dealer. If a video shows you a left hooker pickup and tells you Britain's returning them, that video isn't about you. Here's the actual Toyota story, and it's the opposite of the headline. Toyota hybrids hold their value about as well as anything on sale here. And strong residuals flip the maths completely. Remember line 1 and line 2? On a Toyota, line 1 falls slower, which means the gap closes sooner, which means by the time you've hit that 50% mark, the car is very often worth more than what's left on the agreement. Hand that back under Section 99 and you're not escaping anything. You're posting equity through the letterbox and walking off. And that's a proper sum, not a rounding error. On a car that's held its money, the difference between the settlement figure and what the thing is actually worth can be 4 figures. Hand it back, and that 4-figure number goes to the finance company with a thank you letter. The right move on a car like that is usually the boring one. Ring the lender, ask for a settlement figure, then get the car valued properly. If the car's worth more than the settlement, you sell it, clear the finance, and keep the difference. That's your money, and it only exists because the car held its value. So the same legal right is the escape hatch on a heavily discounted electric car and a mistake on a Toyota hybrid. Same law. Opposite answer. It depends entirely on those 2 lines, which is why we spent 10 minutes on them. Now, who profits from you not knowing this? And I'll say this carefully because I'm not telling you there's a scheme. It's quieter and simpler than any conspiracy. Nobody hid Section 99. It's been sat in an Act of Parliament since 1974, free to read. There was just never any profit in mentioning it, so the knowledge grew over like a footpath nobody walks. Back in 2005, the motor finance houses did lobby the government to scrap voluntary termination. The government said no, it was an essential consumer protection. So it's not a secret. It's just never once been in anybody's interest at that desk to bring it up. And listen, the people handing their keys back aren't stupid, and they're not deadbeats. Most of them answered the wrong question. They were asked what they could pay a month, and they answered it honestly. Nobody asked them what the car cost, because that isn't the question the form has a box for. So here's what to do, in order, and none of it costs a penny. 1. Dig out your agreement and find 2 figures, total amount payable and 50% of it. It's printed on there. Then add up everything you've actually paid, deposit included, and see where you stand. 2. Ring your lender and ask for a settlement figure. It's free, it doesn't commit you to anything, and it takes 5 minutes. 3. Get the car valued for real. Not what the forecourt's asking for one like it, what somebody will actually hand you today. If that number beats the settlement figure, you've got equity, and voluntary termination is the wrong door. 4. Check the tax before you buy anything, not after. 30 seconds on the Gov UK checker tells you the band. And if you're anywhere near London or a clean air zone, put the registration into TfL's checker or your council's. Don't assume you're exempt, and don't take a salesman's word for it. 5. Whatever you do next, do it in writing. And one more, free of charge, for anyone buying new. Ask to see the V5C before you sign. Check the date of first registration and the number of previous keepers. Estimates put somewhere between 10 and 20% of new cars as pre-registered, plated by a dealer or manufacturer before any customer existed. If it was registered 4 months ago, you're the second keeper and 4 months of your warranty is already gone. That's not illegal. It's just another price wearing a costume. There's a card up on screen now with another one of these. Have a look. It's worth your time. So, Britain's handbacks are real. They're just a finance story wearing a mechanical mask. The gap between what your car's worth and what you owe, the payment that hid the price, the tax you never saw, and a right in a 52-year-old act that nobody at the desk was paid to mention. And on a Toyota, that right is usually the mistake, because the car did the one thing it was bought to do. Purchase price is honest, A payment is a costume a price wears. Go and find out which one you signed for. Now I want specifics in the comments, not opinions. What's the total amount payable on your agreement? How much have you actually paid so far? And did anybody at that desk ever once say the words Section 99? And if you think we've got something wrong here, say so plainly and we'll look at it. Next time we're going after the GMF fee itself, the guaranteed future value sat at the end of your PCP. We'll show you how to work out whether yours is a promise or a trap, and why a high one isn't always the good news it looks like. Buy with your head, not the badge. This video is based on publicly available legislation, recall notices, MOT test data, safety ratings, reliability surveys, and independent review evidence current at time of publication. Individual vehicle outcomes vary. Some models may have had subsequent updates, recalls, or improvements. Tax rates and finance rules change. Always obtain current information and independent advice before making any purchase or finance decision.